He had nothing left to give. No savings, no seeds, and just one cow that kept him alive. Yet when a stranger knocked on his door with hungry eyes, the farmer gave away the last thing he owned. The next morning, something impossible happened. Before we dive into this heart-touching story of faith and kindness, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories, and share it with someone who loves powerful messages. From which country are you watching my video, as I can see where my video is being watched? Let me know in the comments. Thomas Reed had always been a simple man. He lived alone in a small wooden farmhouse surrounded by dry, cracked fields that once bloomed with golden wheat and strong corn stalks. For generations, his family had farmed this land. But now, it looked more like a desert than a farm. The rain hadn't come in over a year, and Thomas had already sold everything just to survive. Everything, except for Daisy, his last remaining cow. Daisy wasn't just any cow. She was a gift from his late wife, Eleanor. They had raised her from a calf, and she was the only reason Thomas still had milk to drink and sometimes enough to trade for bread. Losing Daisy would mean losing his final tie to hope, to survival, and to Eleanor's memory. But things were bad. Thomas was in his 60s, and the land had stopped giving anything back. He'd wake up every day and walk the fields in silence, hoping for clouds that never came. The other farms nearby had all been abandoned. Neighbors had moved to cities or were swallowed by debt. Thomas stayed because this was home, because he had nowhere else to go. One evening, just as the sun disappeared behind the hills, there was a knock at his door. It startled him. No one had visited in months. He opened it to find a man, probably in his 40s, wearing torn clothes, and looking as if he hadn't eaten in days. His eyes were sunken, his lips cracked, and he had a young girl with him, maybe 6 years old, clutching his hand and shivering despite the warm air. "I'm sorry to bother you," the man said, his voice barely a whisper. "We've been walking for miles. My daughter hasn't eaten since yesterday. We don't want money. Just a little milk, if you have any." Thomas looked at the girl. Her cheeks were pale, her dress stained with dust. His heart clenched. He looked over at Daisy through the window. She was in the barn, gently chewing hay, calm and familiar. He could have said no. He should have, maybe. That cow was his lifeline, but something inside him stirred. A quiet voice that reminded him of Eleanor, of how she'd always said, "What you give in love, you never lose." Without speaking, Thomas walked out, led the man and the girl to the barn, and handed the rope of Daisy's collar to the stranger. "Take her," Thomas said. The man froze. "What?" "She'll feed your daughter. Keep her alive. I'll manage somehow." Tears formed in the man's eyes. "Sir, I can't take your only cow." "I didn't offer her to be argued with," Thomas interrupted gently. "Just promise me you'll take care of her." The man didn't have words. He just nodded, then hugged the old farmer tightly. "My name's Henry. This is Grace. Thank you. You've saved us." They left with Daisy. Thomas stood at the gate, watching until the three disappeared into the night. Then he walked back to the empty barn, sat down on a wooden stool, and cried. That night was the loneliest Thomas had ever felt. No sound from the barn, no gentle mooing, just silence and an aching emptiness. He barely slept, and when the first light of dawn crept through the cracks of his shutters, he didn't even want to get up. What was the point now? Still, routine pushed him forward. He pulled on his boots and went outside, expecting the same dead fields, the same hopelessness. But he froze. Something was different. The ground wasn't dry. It was damp, muddy even. He looked up. There were no clouds, no sign of rain. He took a few steps into the fields. His boots sank into the earth, soft and rich. He blinked in disbelief. Then he saw something that made his heart stop. Sprouts. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. Tiny green shoots were rising from the earth where nothing had grown for over a year. Thomas knelt down, touched one, and held the soft leaves in his rough fingers. It wasn't possible. He ran to the other side of the property. More. Sprouts. Rows of them. Wheat. Corn. Beans. Everything he had once planted and given up on was growing. He staggered back toward the house, unsure if he was dreaming. On his porch, something caught his eye. A small tin box. He hadn't noticed it before. It wasn't there the night before. He opened it slowly. Inside were several folded bills. New, clean, and a note. It read, "Dear Thomas, you gave us more than milk. You gave us hope. I want to tell you the truth now. My name isn't really Henry. I work with a group that helps struggling families and lost farmers across the country. We search for people with kind hearts, people who give when they have nothing left. Daisy is being well taken care of, and so will you. You have more support than you know. Keep walking in faith. H." Thomas sat down hard on the porch bench, staring at the note. The money inside the box was enough to buy seeds, tools, even help to hire workers. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, more strange things happened. A tractor arrived from a nearby town. No explanation, just a delivery tag with his name. Neighbors who had once left the area returned to help. Somehow word had spread. They brought supplies, extra hands, and even livestock. It was like the universe had shifted overnight. Within a month, Thomas's farm looked like it did 15 years ago. The fields were full. Chickens clucked around the yard. A new cow stood in the barn, donated by a family who'd heard of his story. Thomas never saw Henry or Grace again. But sometimes he would find little notes near the gate, handwritten, and always signed with H. They reminded him to believe, to give, and to keep trusting. The farm not only survived, it became a center of hope for others. Thomas started a tradition. Anyone who needed food could come and take what they needed. And every time he gave, something beautiful returned. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills again, he stood by the fence and whispered to the sky, "Thank you, Eleanor. I understand now. Sometimes, giving your last can opened the door to everything. And when love guides the heart, miracles find their way home."